Good evening, everybody. I'm Lou Dobbs. We've learned more about the nation's deadliest mass shooting in history. The major development today, the revelation that the wife of the Orlando nightclub terrorist knew of her husband's deadly plans and did nothing to stop him. His wife also may have assisted him in his heinous massacre in which he killed 49 people, wounded 53 others. Law enforcement officers tell us Omar Mateen's wife is cooperating in their investigation. They say she is also likely to be arrested. The FBI says it's investigating as well. Reports the terrorist may have been a regular at the gay club he attacked, that Mateen had been going there for at least 3 years and may have used gay dating apps. To assess all that we know of the attack tonight, we're joined by UN Ambassador John Bolton, counterterrorism expert Sebastian Gorka. We've got a lot to cover tonight, including a Donald Trump rally in Greensboro, North Carolina. The rally just started. This is Trump's first visit to North Carolina in 3 months. Trump is expected to respond to the harsh attacks today by President Obama and Speaker Paul Ryan, who've now joined forces with Hillary Clinton to attack Trump for using the phrase radical Islam and proposing a ban on Muslim immigration.
There's no magic to the phrase radical Islam. It's a political talking point. It's not a strategy.
I think there's a really important distinction that every American needs to keep in mind. This is a war with radical Islam. It's not a war with Islam. Muslims are our partners. The vast, vast majority of Muslims in this country and around the world are moderate. They're peaceful. They're tolerant.
We'll be talking about those comments tonight with the 5 co-hosts, Kimberly Guilfoyle, about the explosion as well of the issues now in this presidential campaign, going to the heart of our two-party political system, the leadership of the Republican Party, the administration's efforts to control language and thought that rises to the level of authoritarianism in the minds of many, and the failure, of course, of the world's only superpower to destroy radical Islamist terrorists over a period of almost 15 years. Also tonight, the last primary election of 2016 ends in Washington, D.C. in less than an hour. Polls closing in the capital city. Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders also tonight scheduled to hold a highly anticipated summit in Washington, a meeting that concludes their hard-fought, sometimes bitter battle for the Democratic presidential nomination. Some even expect Sanders tonight to concede to Hillary Clinton. Our top story, the debate over the global war on radical Islamist terror, a war that has been fought over a decade and a half and without victory. Trump on the attack, blaming President Obama for his lack of courage and failure to name our enemy. Radical Islamist terrorists for failing to fight them effectively, despite promising the American people that he would, quote, degrade and destroy the Islamic State. The battle lines are clearly drawn in this contest between Clinton and Trump. Hillary Clinton and President Obama, who today tried to justify his refusal to use the term radical Islamic terror, while his former Secretary of State indeed acceded to Trump's demand that we name our enemies. On the right, Trump, who says the president's refusal to name the enemy puts America in danger and who demands we control our borders and our ports and control who enters this country, whether refugee or immigrant.
Would it make ISIL less committed to trying to kill Americans? Calling a threat by a different name does not make it go away. This is a political distraction.
Nobody knows why he doesn't have more anger, why he doesn't have more competitive zeal. He's a competitive person. Why doesn't he have more competitive zeal to knock them out, Bill? I mean, look at what's going on. Look at what's happening. This Orlando attack was just absolutely horrendous, and yet he still doesn't even use the word of radical Islamic terror.
Well, joining us tonight, co-host of The Five, Kimberly Guilfoyle. She's also author of the national bestseller, Making the Case, now in paperback. Kimberly, good to have you here.
Good evening.
Let's start about Trump's assertion about, I have not, over the course of 7.5 years, seen Obama angrier than he was, but all of his anger directed at Donald Trump.
At Donald Trump. I mean, he can't even muster up a little bit of energy to be upset or zeal, as Trump mentioned, against the terrorists and those who would wage jihad globally and specifically here on our soil. If there was ever going to be a wake-up, you thought perhaps this would be it. But instead, he seems to have drifted even further away from the idea that we are at war with ISIS. And this does make us less safe because he's more interested in political correctness than an accurate assessment of the threat that we face here on U.S. soil.
You know, I pause when I hear the suggestion that we're at war with ISIS, because this president, in point of fact, has reduced the number of sorties being flown against Islamic State targets. We are less engaged with the Islamic State, and the results have been pathetic. He promised he would destroy them over 2 years ago.
Right. Well, the problem is he misunderstood and definitely underestimated the threat and their capability and their desire to achieve a caliphate. He called them the JV team, and all he succeeded during his administration in doing is giving ISIS and those that wage jihad a B-12 shot, and they seem very high energy to me at this point, as evidenced by what happened in Orlando.
It is also very evident now that he means to be in the middle of this campaign. He talks about a political distraction. He is creating the largest of his second term as he runs for Hillary Clinton's, if you will, election to his third term, figuratively speaking. I don't understand what's going on in the man's mind, because he's not making a lot of sense. I frankly found much of what he said today, and I've got to be straightforward with everyone, I found what he had to say to be more rationalization than analysis. I thought what he said about political diversions when we're talking about the naming of an enemy is just tantamount to specious nonsense.
Yes, and he says there's no magic, in a phrase or using that phrase, radical Islamist terrorism. He doesn't get it. He's so afraid of words. It would be the worst night ever to play Scrabble with this guy, because he couldn't spell it, he couldn't say it, he can't even think about it. It's not his focus. It's not his priority. He's more interested in being professorial and teaching us about our manners as it relates to being politically correct and embracing the Muslim religion. He constantly says that Islam is a religion of peace, but not if you embrace and understand and read the Quran, which tells you to strike down the infidels. It's just, to me, this has just been a complete waste of time, and I'm worried about the, last 219 days?
Right, exactly. And Paul Ryan, joining with President Obama in trying to establish himself as the arbiter of what is appropriate language, the arbiter of what is the appropriate response to the radical Islamist terrorists, including, of course, the Islamic State. Yeah,
it's tone deaf, though, the whole thing, because, Americans want to be more safe, not less safe, like what we saw happened over the past few days. I mean, the carnage and what one individual was able to accomplish that pledged his allegiance to ISIS. I mean, we're really missing the point here. It's an epic national security fail that will have long-lasting ramifications. And our military is very weak, much smaller in size than it has been in the past. And to be quite honest, we need them now more than ever, as ISIS and other groups that wage jihad have spread their tentacles to a vaster region of area, and also groups pledging allegiance to ISIS, like Boko Haram and other areas that we have to fight jihad with Al-Nusra and AQAP.
Kimberly Guilfoyle, always good to see you.
Thanks
for being here. We're coming right back. We've got a lot to cover tonight. Stay with us. The DNC says Russia hacked its computers, perhaps looking for info it couldn't find on Hillary's, namely the DNC opposition research on Donald Trump.
More and more countries are using hacking to steal our information, to use it to their advantage.
We'll take that up and more with Ambassador John Bolton here next.